Hello to all my dear followers and be welcome to another season, the 5th season of What If Naruto Was trained by Kurama since childhood and mastered the MINATO'S jutsus. As always, if you want a 6th season in this case, don't forget to give your comment asking for the 6th season, the next season, give your like and subscribe for more. So, we're gonna start.
The next morning, he met Jiraiya at the bathhouse again. "Good morning, Ero-senin," Jiraiya grumbled. "You're really stuck on that name, huh?" Naruto said mildly. "You have to admit, though, it's oddly befitting of you." As they walked, Jiraiya explained, "All right, first I need to have a measure of your current skills, so we'll go an empty ground I know a few ways away. Then after that, I'll help you set up for the things you need to work on, while I do my own work." Naruto interrupted with a dry tone. "You mean peeping, don't you?" Jiraiya didn't even acknowledge the question, leading them into a field with a large lake on the other side of the bushes. Jiraiya stopped in the middle of the field and turned to face Naruto. "Show me what you got," Naruto asked in return. "Should I take off the resistance seals?" Jiraiya considered it and said, "Start off with them. Then when I say so, take them off." Naruto grinned savagely. He could strike without holding back this time. The thought spiked his heart rate, adrenaline filling his veins. He shot forward in a dash, his right foot towards Jiraiya's face. It was blocked by the man, but Naruto only needed to get close. He engaged Jiraiya in an exchange of punches, kicks, palm strikes and jabs, never hitting the Sannin, but not getting hit either. He realized that Jiraiya was just getting serious, so he decided to up the game. Disengaging, he formed the snake seal. Futon. Kaze Jirai no Jutsu. Wind style, wind torpedo. A spinning ball of wind sped towards Jiraiya, who looked shocked. "He knows futon?" He jumped out of the way, seeing the spot he was standing on explode in wind. "I would have been cut in pieces if I had gotten hit with that." He sped through his own hand seals. Ninja art. Toad oil bullet. Naruto's mind worked instinctively, knowing what set oil on flame. Katan. Ryuka no Jutsu. As soon as the fire impacted the sticky oil, it raced back towards a stupefied Jiraiya. "He knows Katan?" He immediately disconnected the oil. He turned around on instinct to block the punch from the shadow clone, kicking it and causing it to dispel. However, chains of water rose up and wrapped around him in a flash. "He knows Suetun as well?" However, he was not allowed to dwell on it for long. A cry distracted him. His danger sense rang true, warning him from behind. He shunpoed just in time to avoid the heel that would have sent him through trees. Jiraiya blinked when he missed. What was that? Naruto then appeared in front of him, his face not giving away anything. Jiraiya rose an eyebrow, curious as to what the blonde was up to. "You're fast, Ero-senin. But are you faster than lightning?" He added a smirk in the end. Jiraiya only had a microsecond to get confused before Naruto was covered in red lightning of all things. Since the whole area was covered in water from Naruto's earlier jutsu, it acted as the medium for the lightning to race towards Jiraiya. Jiraiya was obviously not faster than lightning, so he grunted when he was electrocuted. It only lasted for a moment, after which Naruto landed a direct kick in Jiraiya's gut, sending him flying backwards on his behind. Honestly speaking, the fight should have been over by now. Naruto didn't need to let up the lightning, otherwise Jiraiya would have been finished by now. But Naruto watched dispassionately as Jiraiya crumbled. He flipped back to avoid his face from meeting the ground. Jiraiya grinned as he watched Naruto settle into a strange fighting stance. He's fast, and his taijutsu style is something I've never seen, but it had elements of the snake style. He hits hard and fast even with the weights. His instincts are excellent, and he doesn't let his guard down even for a moment. He knows 4 nature transformations and he is pretty well versed in them, considering he used 3 of them with only 1 or 2 seals and the lightning without a seal. He almost had me there, if I hadn't substituted at the last second. A Jonin would be hard-pressed to beat him right now. "All right, brat, seals off." He felt a little nervous at the grin that appeared on his godson's face, but shook it off. This time, he took the initiative, dashing forward towards Naruto. However, he was once again surprised just how fast Naruto was. His speed was easily high Jonin with the reflexes to match. Jiraiya was hard-pressed to find an opening the fight. He was forced onto the defensive when Naruto took out two kunai, held them in a reverse grip and channeled wind chakra, causing the kunai to look like blue daggers. He was on the defense for a while before he managed to disengage with the help of an earth spike, sending Naruto back. Naruto threw the kunai mid-air with deadly accuracy, which Jiraiya avoided by the skin of his teeth. Naruto landed and looked at him, and Jiraiya had to admit he was more than a bit unnerved at the grin Naruto was showing. Naruto then took out two exploding tags between fingers of both hands, held them in a cross and threw them such that they were on either side of Jiraiya, who scoffed. "If you think two explosive tags can take me out, think again." But then he cursed and jumped back, because somehow the tags were multiplying. "Gojo Kabaka Fuda!" Naruto exclaimed. A series of successive explosions shook the area. When the smoke cleared, as expected, Jiraiya wasn't there. He spread out his senses, but it seemed Jiraiya had a way to block himself from sensor-type ninjas. He sniffed the air, looking for the distinctive smell of oil, but other than in the clearing, it was nowhere. But he wasn't out of his options just yet. He still had yet to reveal his trump card, Hiraishin. Jiraiya may have been able to block himself from his senses, but Naruto could always sense where he had placed his Jutsu Shiki. Along the course of the fight, Naruto had placed his formula on the ground in multiple spaces. All of them were in his vision, all except one. Jiraiya in a tree 50 feet behind Naruto. Naruto wasted no time in flashing. Jiraiya closely observed Naruto while under a jutsu that prevents anyone from sensing him. He is good, better than what Minato was at his age. He's faster than most of the jonin that I know. What is that technique, though? It seemed like a short-ranged shunshin, but not the shunshin. Those explosions, though, how did he create those? The tag multiplied into copies, but the explosive power didn't diminish one bit. It was a truly ingenious seal. He is easily mid to high jonin level. But now that the enemy is hidden, what will you do next, Naruto? He was flabbergasted, however, when Naruto disappeared in a blue flash. Naruto grinned as he connected a solid kick to the real Jiraiya's cheek for the first time in the fight, sending him flying through two trees and straight back into the clearing. Jiraiya flipped onto his feet, ignoring the pain completely and staring open-mouthed at Naruto, who used his shunshin-like technique to appear in front of him. That was dash. He didn't get a chance to finish as Naruto disappeared in a blue flash again, appearing right in front of Jiraiya and punching him in the cheek. Jiraiya staggered back, clutching his tender jaw. Naruto disappeared again, reappearing behind Jiraiya in less than a second. A double palm thrust sent Jiraiya flying straight into the path of a tree. However, he already knew what he wanted to know. Jiraiya easily landed sideways onto the tree, then jumping down. He stared at Naruto in shock, who was smirking. His voice was barely above a whisper. "You mastered the flying thunder god?" Naruto nodded, still smirking. He kept smirking when Jiraiya chuckled, which progressed into deep, bellowing laughs. He hadn't had this much fun in a fight since Minato. He calmed down and stared at Naruto with a grin. "Kid, you could beat most jonin with what you have right there," he remarked, and his opinion of Naruto only rose higher when he replied. "True, but there is always room for improvement," Naruto conceded. He still wanted to improve. He was still only 13 years old, so he had a lot of room for improvement left. Jiraiya asked with some hope in his voice, "Naruto, how would you like to become my apprentice?" Naruto's eyes lit up. "Really?" Jiraiya nodded with a smile. He would make a damn good shinobi out of this kid, even stronger than Minato. Naruto jumped up in joy. "Waiatite?" Naruto looked at Jiraiya with his blue eyes shining. "Does that mean dash?" He didn't even finish his question when a scroll appeared in Jiraiya's hands, offering it to Naruto. Naruto opened the scroll and his eyes softened when he saw the name of the latest toad summoner. "Dad!" His eyes moistened as he rubbed them. He took out a kunai and cut his right thumb. Just as he was about to sign on it, KURAMA stopped him. "Wait, Naruto!" Naruto's thumb stopped short of the scroll, brow furrowing in confusion with Jiraiya. He looked over to Jiraiya, pointing towards his stomach and then to his mind. Jiraiya's eyebrows rose disbelievingly. "The QB is speaking to you?" Naruto nodded absently as he put his thumb in his mouth. What is it, Kurama? Don't sign the contract, the fox rumbled. Naruto rose an eyebrow in challenge. Why not? They are powerful. What he heard next caught him off guard. The fox contract is even more powerful. Naruto couldn't help but blurt it out. You want me to sign the fox contract? Jiraiya's eyes widened. There is a fox contract? He couldn't believe that the Kyuubi of all beings was trying to persuade Naruto to sign a contract that was the same as its species. He watched as Naruto's face cycled through different expressions. First shock, confusion, challenging, speculation, agreement, and finally resignation. Naruto sighed. Kurama wants me to sign the fox contract. Ero Sennin. Kurama. Naruto gave him a look. The Kyuubi has a name, you know, and he won't accept me signing any other contract than that of the fox. He looked up to Jiraiya with worried eyes. Does that mean I won't be able to become your apprentice? Jiraiya was frowning, and that only fueled Naruto's worry. Are you friends with Kurama? Naruto looked confused as to why Jiraiya was asking this question, but nodded. Jiraiya then surprised Naruto by chuckling. No worries, Naruto, he declared. You might not become a toad summoner or apprentice, but you will still be my apprentice. Who knows? You might even become a better summoner than me one day. Jiraiya was deeply hurt and sad that Naruto won't be able to become a toad summoner like him or Minato. But he really didn't want to antagonize the demon fox residing inside Naruto, not to mention the prophecy that the toads gave him. The key to Naruto's seal was with the Toad clan, so Jiraiya was the only one who can give it to him now. He hates toads. Jiraiya blinked, snapping out of his thoughts. What? Naruto ignored Kurama's enraged yells. He doesn't want to be associated with toads. The reason he explained for a long time how foxes are superior to toads in every way is because he can't be upfront about his feelings. Jiraiya was finding it hard not to chuckle, lest the Kyuubi forcefully send some chakra into Naruto in an attempt to kill him. The aspect of Kurama he just learned. It was surprisingly human. He figured it was fair reason for Naruto not signing the toad contract. But that left a problem. Where will you find the fox contract, though? Naruto answered. Kurama told me that for shinobi to use summoning jutsu successfully, they have to have a contract with an animal. But if a shinobi performs the summoning jutsu without a contract, they will be transported to the realm of the animal they are most suited to have a contract with. Jiraiya remembered with a grimace when he had tried to the same and ended up on MT Mayaboku. That's true, Naruto shrugged. Then I will do the same, but my case is a bit special. Due to having Kurama, a fox demon inside me, I automatically qualify to become a fox summoner. So performing the jutsu will take me straight to the fox realm. Jiraiya thought over it a bit. It was a sound theory, but if it didn't work, Naruto would have no way to come back. What if doesn't work? Naruto blinked then winced. Kurama doesn't like other people questioning his intelligence. Jiraiya paled, but nodded and told Naruto the hand signs. You perform the hand signs boar, dog, bird, monkey and ram and slam your hand onto a surface. That's the gist of it. Boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram. Naruto made each hand seal slowly, his anticipation clear for Jiraiya to see. As soon as he completed the sequence, Naruto slammed his hand on the ground. A sealing array, which Naruto guessed was a contract seal, erupted and he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya exhaled a sigh and sat down, waiting for his godson to return. Naruto appeared in the realm of the foxes, shaking his head at the sight dizziness. The sensation of traveling was not unlike Hiration. He heard Kurama's voice in his head, which was filled with the emotion one goes through when they come back home. Welcome to Kitsune no Kuni, Hiwa no Oka, the hills of peace. Naruto gazed awestruck at the realm of the foxes. It was the most beautiful place Naruto had ever seen, so exotic that it felt like the true symbolization of nature. It looked very much like a hill station, but instead of houses, a number of caves were on each hill. There were 5 hills in total leading up to a huge mountain, the top of which was among the clouds. The place was so full of ambience that Naruto had unknowingly sat down just to admire the beauty of the place. He had never felt this close to nature ever before. Naruto had never seen so many foxes in one place before. Beautiful, isn't it? Kurama spoke in a soft tone, well as soft his rumbling voice could become. Naruto agreed in an equally soft voice, afraid that if he spoke above a whisper it would shatter the peace of the place. Yeah! He just kept gazing at the valley, a soft smile on his face, not even noticing that a brown fox had spotted him and alerted the others. A snarl interrupted his thoughts and he found himself gazing at around 15 snarling foxes of different colors, who looked not the least bit friendly. Naruto unconsciously straightened up while sitting Indian style, making eye contact with the lead, silver fox. He didn't mask himself. Instead, he revealed who he truly was through his eyes. The fox stopped snarling and adopted what looked like curiosity on his face. He looked into Naruto's eyes for several moments, Naruto not flinching away for even a moment. "Who are you, human?" The smooth tenor surprised Naruto only for a second, but he recovered. "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. May I know yours?" "Best to be polite rather than hostile." "Osamu," came the reply. "What are you doing here, Uzumaki Naruto?" Naruto didn't know whether his answer would infuriate Osamu or not, but it would be unwise to lie. Foxes are extremely clever creatures. "I was told to come here by Kurama to sign the contract of the foxes." He gulped when he saw Osamu's face twisting, revealing his sharp teeth. It did not help that Osamu was almost as tall when Naruto was standing. "You have some nerve, addressing the Lord of Foxes by his name, without an honorific no less." Naruto spoke before he would be forced to defend himself. "Because he lives inside me." Osamu blinked, not understanding Naruto's statement at first. But when he realized what it meant, his face twisted into a snarl once again and he got into an attack position. "Why you dash? Stop!" A simple command from a soft voice caused all the foxes to turn around. Naruto found himself gazing at a regal-looking red fox. The voice was obviously female, filled with power and superiority, but at the same time, a warm and comforting tone. She looked beautiful. The red fox strode towards Naruto, assessing him with her gaze. The foxes parted for her and soon she was looking down at Naruto. "Stand up, Naruto-kun." Naruto blinked at the soft tone, but did as she said. Soon, his eyes were level with the red female fox. She gazed into his eyes for a moment, then spoke. "We have been waiting for you, Naruto-kun." Naruto rose a puzzled eyebrow. "Waiting for me?" The red fox smiled and said, "Come, we have much to talk about." She turned around and from the way everyone bowed to her, she must be a pretty important fox around here. He walked after her as she led the way. "I understand Kyubi-sama told you to come here?" "Why yes, he did." The red fox chuckled. "No need to be afraid, Naruto-kun. You are one of us now, or you will be after you sign the contract." Naruto then spoke, his confidence returning but still being cautious. "I never did get your name, Kitsune-sama." The female fox chuckled. "That's because I never told you. My name is Naomi." Naruto smiled. "Nice to meet you, Naomi-sama." Naomi laughed softly. "You are very well-mannered, Naruto-kun." "It is nice to meet you too." Naruto then said, "Not to be rude or anything, but having an animal contract is pretty serious. So shouldn't I be tested if I am worthy of the contract or not?" Naomi easily replied, "The word of Kyubi-sama is proof enough. Believe me, if Kyubi-sama didn't think you were worthy, he wouldn't have even told you that we exist." Naruto listened as Naomi told him the history of how the Kitsune contract came to be. Many years ago, way before the era of the Kage, Kyubi was still a free demon. It was a misconception that Kyubi randomly attacked human settlements. In truth, Kyubi only attacked those human settlements where the greatest concentration of negative feelings was. People were right to fear the Kyubi, but they started taking out their anger on the normal foxes, attacking and killing a fox whenever it came into their sights. Kyubi listened to the plight of the foxes and created this realm in a remote corner of the world, so that foxes can live without having to look over their shoulders every few moments. The foxes settled down in these hills and over time, they became beings that were strong and intelligent enough to create a summoning contract of their own. However, there was only one person worthy enough to become their summoner. Then, A prophecy was told that a boy judged worthy by their lord would become the next summoner of the foxes and would change the world. Naruto was frowning at the end of the explanation. I get the history of the foxes, Naomi-sama, but I was mentioned in a prophecy? Naomi saw that Naruto was likely to prod at that, so she changed the subject. A story for another time. For now, you need to meet the boss of the kitsune. They arrived at a large gate, which stood well over 120 meters. But what caused Naruto's mouth to drop were the guards that stood on either side of the doors. They were easily 70 to 80 meters, humanoid foxes like KURAMA, with the opposable thumbs and all. They were wearing black, full sleeves haori and had swords strapped to their waists. The most notable features, though, were the 5 tails that lay 8 rest behind them. At Naruto's dumbfounded look, Naomi chuckled and explained, "They are boss-level fighters, Naruto-kun. The number of tails they have denote their level of strength, and as such, rank is given out. But you don't need to know that right now." She nodded to the guards, who bowed deeply to her and proceeded to open the gates. "Naomi-sama, you seem to be an important figure around here," Naruto commented as they proceeded inside. Naomi winked at him. "If you must know, I am a member of the High Council of the Kitsune." She laughed at Naruto's pale face and walked inside. Naruto snapped out of his shock and ran after her. The sight on the inside was just as shocking as it was on the outside. Large foxes, with tails that varied from 2 to 6, were inside sparring with each other with various weapons. Naruto found it curious that none of the noise was heard when they were standing outside the gates. A silencing barrier, perhaps? He marveled at the sheer amount of chakra he was sensing from each of them. It was easily S rank, surpassing the Kage level. Naruto himself had Kage level chakra reserves due to having Kurama inside him and Uzumaki lineage. He looked around in awe, keeping up with Naomi, until he spotted a fox. The fox was easily the tallest of all, standing a bit taller than everyone. And he had 7 tails, making him the strongest fox here, which meant he was the boss of the kitsune. He had a deep blue fur, and wore a red haori which had the kanji for boss on the back. On his waist was strapped a chikudo. Naomi walked up to the boss, and as she did, Naruto noticed that everyone had stopped fighting and was bowing to her. After she acknowledged their now, they turned their attention to Naruto. As Naruto expected, they looked at him strangely, probably wondering what a human was doing in their realm. Naomi walked up to the boss of the kitsune, who bowed deeply to her as well. "Naomi-sama." His voice was deep like Kurama, but unlike the demon's rumbling, his voice was a deep, smooth baritone. "Takashi," she acknowledged. The now-dubbed Takashi straightened up and asked, "Naomi-sama, what can I do for you today?" Naomi's voice was full of authority. "I want you to meet and judge the newest summoner of the kitsune, the one who is mentioned in the prophecy." Takashi frowned and asked, "Has he already arrived then?" He then turned his eyes onto Naruto, who had to crane up his neck to see him. Takashi bent down to take a greater look at Naruto. After a long moment, he dryly commented, "You're tiny." Naruto almost face-planted at that. Even the other foxes were sniggering with mirth. Only Naomi was the one watching the conversation with a serious eye. Naruto snarked at him. "Well, I can't be as tall as you now, can I?" Naruto got the impression that he had just insulted the boss, if the sucking of breath and straightening of backs from the other foxes was any indication. Takashi's eyes narrowed, but Naruto didn't show a hint of fear. He had come too far to get afraid now. "I see you are quite witty yourself, but I have to ask, Naomi-sama." He turned his attention to Naomi. "Who judged him worthy?" "Kyubi-sama." The single answer was enough for Takashi to widen his eyes, along with all the other foxes. "I see," he said slowly, straightening up. He gazed at Naruto. "What is your name?" "Uzumaki Naruto." "Uzumaki Naruto." He rolled the name over his tongue, testing it out. He held an arm out. "Climb on, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto wasn't startled this time, jumping onto the arm. Takashi looked at him with a critical eye. "If Kyubi-sama has judged you worthy to be our summoner, then I have no doubt that you are strong. But physical strength isn't everything. As the kitsune, we value wisdom and cleverness as much as we value our physical strength. So answer me this, Uzumaki Naruto. When you stop and look, you can always see it. If you try to touch, you cannot feel it. Cannot move, but as you near it, it moves away from you. What is it? Naruto thought for a moment and replied, "It's the horizon." If Takashi was surprised, he did an excellent job of hiding it. He chuckled. "What a sharp wit you have, Uzumaki Naruto. You are strong in the mind as well, as expected from someone who is to be our summoner." He surprised Naruto by gently setting his hand on the ground, saving Naruto from jumping from such a height. He smiled. "The Kitsune will be glad to serve as your summons, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto grinned widely and put a thumbs up, declaring loudly, "I look forward to working with you guys as well." Takashi chuckled loudly and said, "Naomi-sama, now that I have judged our summoner, perhaps you should give him the contract?" Naomi nodded and slapped her right front foot on the ground. A ceiling array spread out, and in a puff of smoke, a large red scroll was revealed. Naomi spread it open and gestured Naruto to sign it. Naruto nodded, took a kunai, cutting his thumb and letting some blood flow out. Naruto deftly put his name onto one of the columns, absently noting the name of the previous summoner, Yamamoto Erasure. Naruto couldn't make anything of that name, so he put it at the back of his mind. Placing the top of all his fingers beneath his name, he released a breath. He was finally a fox summoner now. He watched as Naomi rolled the scroll up and it disappeared into a puff of smoke, presumably returning to where it came from. Naomi smiled at Naruto and said, "Congratulations, Naruto-kun. We welcome you as the summoner of foxes." Naruto smiled and nodded. Naomi then addressed him. "Now that is over, I presume you know how to return?" Naruto rose an eyebrow. "It's the same way, isn't it? Kuchios without the blood." When Naomi nodded, Naruto smiled and immediately performed the seals, saying, "I'll summon you as soon as I can, Takashi-san." With that, Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. One of the foxes scoffed. "As if he could summon you, Takashi-sama." He was not expecting a blade to his throat, with Takashi holding it with narrowed eyes. He gulped as his boss growled, "I will not tolerate anyone insulting our new summoner. Is that clear?" He asked the question to everyone. "Hi!" Naomi muttered to herself. "Things are starting to look interesting on the horizon." Naruto-kun, Chapter 16. Naruto and Jiraiya established a schedule for Naruto's training. Jiraiya would create 2 shadow clones along with Naruto. He would remain with the original while the other 2 would practice in Fuinjutsu and Ninjutsu. Naruto was already master of Fuinjutsu, so there was not much teach him that he didn't already know. Instead, they were working on new seals that he could use in the future, not just in the Chunin exams, but against other opponents as well. Naruto's grasp on ninjutsu was pretty solid, not to mention his vast repertoire of them. He knew more C to B rank jutsus rather than the A ranks, and he used them very efficiently. He usually preferred using Suiton and Futon, but his Katan and Raiton were equally good. Jiraiya was training him in a B rank fire jutsu, Katan, Hanu Sud, fire style, blazing hands. Since Naruto knew that his opponent was primarily a taijutsu type fighter, he would have to fight hand-to-hand at some point. But Naruto knew that the Hyuga preferred to stick with their gentle fist. He already had a good repertoire of mid to long-range jutsus to fight. Also, he knew the gentle fist targeted the tenketsu, the points in chakra network that control the flow of chakra. But just like Tenten, Neji couldn't have found a worse opponent since Naruto didn't have a chakra network, so Neji's fighting style was already null and void. Add to the fact that the Hyuga see learning elemental jutsu beneath someone of their stature, and Neji is totally crushed. The original Naruto was concentrating on increasing the speed of his reflexes in taijutsu against Jiraiya. Naruto found out on the first day of their training that Jiraiya was holding back a lot. Their routing was something like this. First, the Sannin would check whether Naruto's resistance seals were actually affecting him or not. Based on that, he would let it remain or change them to a higher level. Then he would tell him to just defend. Naruto would have impressive bruises by the end of the defensive sessions. After half an hour of relaxation, in which his bruises would get healed, Naruto would be told to try and hit Jiraiya. And every single day for the first week, he was only able to hit the man 5 times at the most. Granted, his fighting style, the elemental fist, was as aggressive as it was defensive, not to mention had a minority of made-up moves that he usually employed to finish a fight. He was still far from landing critical hits on the Sannin. Guess he isn't a Sannin in just name, after all, Naruto thought as he relaxed in the onsen. Today was the first Saturday of the month, and he and Jiraiya did nothing but a small, time-limited spar to evaluate Naruto's skills. Naruto had mastered the blazing hands in a total of just 4 hours, and spent rest of the week trying to incorporate it into his fighting style. Jiraiya had released him early because Naruto was to do his own training in the weekends, and Naruto planned to hit a long overdue task, his father's simulation room. He had 5 more levels to go, and Naruto planned to hit 4 of them in the following 4 weekends. He was confident that he would be able to complete with some, if not full ease, but he would worry about that later. Right now, Naruto felt nothing but exasperation along with resignation as he watched his godfather giggle perversely as he peeked onto the women's side of the bath. After their spar, Jiraiya had suggested they go to the onsen to relax. Naruto, the naive idiot that he was, readily agreed, saying he could use a hot bath. However, Naruto had planned on discussing a few things with Jiraiya about what he learned during the first week of the training month while relaxing. This was the first time he learned that when Jiraiya suggested they relax in a hot bath, he really just wanted to peek on the women. Even though there were only 2 of them on the men's side, Naruto sunk lower in order to hide the fact that he was here with Jiraiya. Oh ho ho! This is good, very good. Jiraiya giggled lecherously as he gazed on the naked women on the other side. Naruto glared at his back fiercely, making the tiger hand seal. Chains of water rose up and wrapped around Jiraiya, viciously yanking him back into the water. Can't you stop being a pervert for just a moment and relax? Naruto dryly asked him as his head came out of the water. Jiraiya looked genuinely offended at the question. What? That's just not possible. Being a pervert runs in my blood, Jiraiya proclaimed graciously, even pumping a fist to prove his point. As if that's something to be proud of. Naruto grumbled as he got up, wrapping his towel around his waist. If he stayed any longer, he would faint from dizziness. He would hit the simulation later tonight, so right now he had nothing to do. As he walked towards his apartment, he absently wondered, I wonder what kind of training Sasuke is going through. Elsewhere, Sasuke sneezed, causing to slip into the water with his hands still alight with lightning, shocking him. Naruto panted as the simulation got over. His opponent lay beaten before him. It wasn't tough, but it wasn't easy either. A wave of satisfaction passed over him as he went through the fight in his head. This time, he had managed to inflict most of the bruises onto his opponent instead of himself. His opponent was crafty, and his fighting style was something Naruto had never seen. He fought almost like he was dancing, weaving around in circular patterns. His hands were almost always on the ground and kicks were inverted. The force behind increased with each maneuver. However, Naruto was able to find the weakness of this style. As offensive it was, only evasion tactics were used by his opponent to escape his attacks. There weren't many blocks, so the upper body's only way to not get hit is to continuously keep moving in an acrobatic way. Naruto, however, was able to land in a few attacks before getting annoyed. His opponent's patterns were too erratic to find an opening and exploit it at the same time. So Naruto himself improvised. An opponent with a style like that can be dealt with many ways, but the option that stood out the most to Naruto was the use of brute force. Up until now, Naruto had only attacked the opponent. However, Naruto enhanced his fist with his chakra and punched the ground hard. The force behind it was not what Naruto expected it to be. A few cracks spread around the impact area, but the force was enough to make his opponent stumble, just for a moment. Just what Naruto needed. In a flash step, he appeared before the attacker and slammed his fist straight into the stomach. The human body isn't strong enough to withstand the amount of force that Naruto put in the punch. Added with the fact that the last punch was enhanced by the blazing hands, and his opponent was out for the count. Naruto flashed into his apartment, groaning and looking forward to a hot shower after the session. He was to start his summoning training for Monday, so that was something to look forward to. He took off all his clothes and grabbed a towel from the rack, entering the bathroom and closing it. He sighed in relief as the hot water poured over him, washing all the grime and dirt from his body, as well as soothing his muscles. He stood in there for over 20 minutes, after which he turned off the shower, wiping the water off him and tying it at the waist. Exiting the bathroom, he shut the door and paused for a moment before turning around, eyes narrowing. After a moment, he sighed and relaxed. He proceeded to get dressed and eat dinner before retiring to sleep. He failed to take notice of the crow perched on the lamp post outside his apartment, an ominous Sharingan in its eye socket. "Yash, you ready to learn the awesomeness that is summoning?" Jiraiya questioned loudly, grinning like he knew something Naruto didn't. Naruto just stared at him in a deadpan. Jiraiya began to feel uncomfortable under the deadpan, coughing into his fist in order to maintain his dignity. "Alright, summoning is a pretty simple jutsu, with a little amount technicalities. The chakra requirements for each summon differ greatly. Take me for example. If I put a large amount of chakra in the jutsu, I am likely to get a bigger and a stronger summon like a battle toad than when I put in a small amount of chakra, which is when I get a messenger toad. You will have to adjust accordingly to your summons," he explained. Naruto had to admit that whenever Jiraiya was serious, it was actually possible to see how intelligent he was. Nodding to Jiraiya, Naruto bit his left thumb, allowing blood to come out. He then went through the hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground, pumping a little more than a quarter amount of his chakra. Uchiha no Jutsu. While the sealing array spread out from beneath his hands, nothing else happened. Naruto rose an eyebrow in confusion. Jiraiya noticed it and smirked. "While not shouting out the name of your jutsus is admirable and very useful as a habit, this one is a special case. You have to verbally pronounce it." Naruto rolled his eyes at that and exclaimed, "Uchiha no Jutsu." In a large puff of smoke, it revealed that Naruto had managed to summon Takashi, the boss of foxes. The large summon easily towered over the entire forest they were in, providing a great view to Naruto, who stood upon the fox's head. Jiraiya was gaping at the gigantic summon that Naruto had managed to summon on his first try. "Kami, I didn't know that the foxes were this powerful. This guy could easily tower over Gamabunta, and that guy's size is no joke at all. How the hell did Naruto manage to summon him on his first try? And judging by the giant sword, this guy's easily skilled in kenjutsu. Naruto really did land a treasure with the fox contract." Jiraiya thought in awe as continued gazing the summon. Takashi blinked when he didn't find any threat in front of him, so he addressed his voice snapped Naruto from his mental dance of victory. "Ah, Takashi-san. I was practicing the summoning jutsu to get used to using it in the future." Takashi gave a sound of realization. "I see. In that case, allow me to give you a little advice. Whenever you use the Uchiha no Jutsu, state what type of summon do you want to come to your aid. Battle summons are always on standby, so you don't need to state this for battle summons. But I have to say, it is nothing short of impressive for you to manage to summon me at your age," he complimented Naruto. Naruto blushed at the praise and rubbed the back of his head, chuckling sheepishly. "Thank you, Takashi-san. And please, just Naruto is fine." Takashi chuckled. "Very well, Naruto it is. And don't hesitate to call me if things get difficult for you, Naruto." He dispelled himself after that, returning to the realm of the foxes. Naruto easily landed in a crouch beside a stunned Jiraiya. "What the hell was that, brat?" Jiraiya almost yelled with wide eyes. Naruto gave him an innocent look. "What do you mean?" Jiraiya pointed a finger at him. "Don't give me that look. How the hell did you summon the boss of foxes in your first try?" "Even I didn't manage to summon the toad boss on the first try." Naruto gave him a confused look. "All you have to do is pump the chakra, and based on the amount you get the summon, right? I pumped a significant amount in the jutsu right now." Jiraiya had calmed a little from Naruto's explanation, but was a little curious too. "Just how much did you put into it?" Naruto shrugged. "A little over a quarter of my chakra." Jiraiya nodded absent-mindedly, but then he really registered what Naruto said and whipped around to stare at him. Is he for real? A little over a quarter. Most people his age would have had chakra exhaustion trying to summon the boss, and they would still fail. But then again, his reserves are steadily being increased by the seal, so that's that, he thought speculatively. "Well, brat, since you have shown that you can already summon the boss, we'll try to reduce the amount to see what you can get." Who knows, you might even get a personal summon of your own, Jiraiya suggested, mentally smirking when he saw Naruto's eyes lighting up at the words, personal summon. Naruto grinned at the thought of having a fox partner. That would be so cool. He ignored Kurama's grumbles of, I'm right here, and cut his thumb, flashing through the hand signs and slamming his hand on the ground. Kuchios no Jutsu, a burst of smoke revealed that he had managed to summon a white fox with black markings on its upper body, standing up to Naruto's waist. It had a white tail swaying lazily behind it while it peered up to Naruto with curious green eyes. Who are you? Its tone, a soft tenor, held a hint of curiosity mixed with cautiousness. Naruto grinned and pointed towards himself with his thumb. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the newest summoner of the Kitsune. Nice to meet you. He watched as the fox's eyes brightened up and almost laughed when the fox introduced itself in a similar manner, pointing towards itself with its opposable thumbs. You are the newest summoner. This is awesome. My name is Raiden, the second son of the boss of the Kitsune and the most awesome Kitsune ever. Pleased to meet you. Man. Naruto had to stop himself from glomping the fox because his voice was just so damn cute. Naruto laughed at Raiden's introduction and said, Pleased to meet you too, Raiden. You are actually the second summon I've summoned, you know? Raiden frowned. The second? Who's the first? Naruto smiled proudly. Why, your father, of course. Raiden's eyes widened. You managed to summon my father. You must be really strong then. Naruto just closed his eyes and nodded, enjoying the moment and completely ignoring Jiraiya, who was gaping at the both of them. Kami, he's just like Naruto, he thought as he observed them converse. Raiden seemed come to some realization as he tugged at Naruto's lower, gaining a curious look from the boy. Naruto, do you know what this means? You summoning me? His voice seemed to grow with excitement as he voiced his question. Naruto raised a confused eyebrow. No, what does this mean? Raiden shook his head with wonder. It is a requirement to summon the boss of any summoning clan after you sign the contract, Naruto. However, whomever you summon next becomes the summoner's personal summon. He finished with a significant amount of glee in his voice. Naruto also started grinning, and at the end of his explanation, he engulfed the fox in a hug, burying his head in his fur. Which means you are my personal summons now. We are going to have so much fun together, Raiden. The fox also laughed in happiness, and it was then that Naruto remembered something. Oh, Raiden, I almost forgot. This is my godfather, Jiraiya. He introduced the smirking man sitting behind him. Finally remembered me. Ha, Naruto? You are the Toad Sage? Jiraiya grinned and exclaimed, Indeed I am. Raiden began to shake in excitement. Kami-sama, I can't believe you have such cool company, Naruto. This is the first time I've met a summoner of the Toad clan, let alone a sage. Jiraiya was basking in pride that even the summons he hadn't heard of before seemed to know who he was. But that feeling of pride quickly shattered when Naruto spoke. Seriously, he's not that cool, Raiden. He's a pervert. Jiraiya shouted in defense, sounding extremely offended. Wrong. I'm a super pervert. However, Raiden shook his head, amused by the antics of the large man. I'll remember that in the future. It is nice to meet you, Jiraiya-sama. Turning to Naruto, he poked him in the chest. Naruto, don't you forget about me. Summon me whenever you can. Okay? Even if you just want to hang out or talk. I've been told I'm a great listener. Naruto smiled and nodded, rubbing Raiden's head. Raiden then dispelled himself back to the summoning realm.
Hey, hello again. If you are here and want more seasons, don't forget to give your comment asking for the next season, give your like and subscribe for more. So, bye bye in the next one.